All right, everyone. Now it's time to talk about why we need to defeat China. Now, I do not have any problem with the Chinese people, but when you are a member of a nation, you have to support your nation. Otherwise, you get fucked in the ass, basically. Everyone else in the world seems to understand this except for people in the United States. To my fellow U.S. citizens, and you're 90% of my audience, we need to support our nation. Now, we can have differential opinions on how we should support the nation. Some people are liberal, some people are conservative, some people are more on the libertarian side, some people are more on the authoritarian side. But when you have a nation that is adversarial to yours in pretty much every sense, militarily, economically, diplomatically, and so forth, you have to support your nation. I say this as someone who is more classically liberal. I believe that the United States is a very, very flawed system. That is, that I would like much more individual liberty, much less regulation, much less bureaucracy. But why do I actually believe in this, other than the ethical concept? Because I believe that it will strengthen the nation. Now, some people disagree. They think maybe the United States needs to be more authoritarian, something like that. I think that'll strengthen the nation. I disagree with them, but at the same time, I'm also thrown in with them. That's the way that civics works. I believe that China must be economically defeated. And by that, I don't mean crushing China out of existence or something like that. That's not what I want. What I want is for China to ease off. Just stop. Stop manipulating your currency and things like that. That's all that I'm asking for. It's not that much after all now, is it? The Chinese government, as opposed to the mainline Chinese base, has been abusing its currency, has been abusing diplomacy for a very long time. And by the way, I would note, the United States gets along tolerably well with the other countries that are in proximity. Well, there are a few diplomatic problems with the Canadians. We're not exactly at war now, are we? I know that Trump will say, maybe we'll turn it into the 51st state. It's just a joke. It has to do with tariffs more than anything else. Gets along reasonably well with Mexico. Certainly gets along well with El Salvador at this point, and Argentina. Other countries generally within this particular sphere. China does not get along very well with most of its neighbors. North Korea is nothing more than a puppet state, a buffer. South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, the Philippines, fucking the Cambodians, the Thai, most of them are fairly adversarial towards China. It's interesting because Westerners believe that colonialism and expansionism and so forth are sort of the bread and butter of the U.S. diet, so to speak. That is, the United States is trying to exert influence over the entire world. Interesting. Other than the Middle East, of course, where there have been some problems, we get along tolerably well with most of the nations in the world. China does not. China is exceptionally expansionistic. For example, you've had a number of incidents over the last decade of Chinese vessels ramming into Vietnamese fishing vessels, capsizing them in a few cases, by the way. You're going over and sending ships through the Philippines at ease and so forth, gunning down Taiwan, proclaiming it to be theirs, certainly menacing Japan. China is the imperialist country in the world. It's very, very strange because Westerners don't understand this. They don't think that a country that is predominated by people that are not white, Anglo-Saxons or Germanics, is capable of imperialism. China has been imperialistic for thousands of years. It's very, very interesting when they claim otherwise. Yeah, no, just ignore all of history. The problem is that most people don't understand history. They don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about the history of China. And so they don't understand why the culture there generally would be imperialistic. It's not the fault of the people. It's not any problem on their behalf. They're simply pawns of their own government. They don't really have a choice because it's a totalitarian system. But the government of China remains highly imperialistic. This is, by the way, why Donald Trump probably will be more successful than most Western leaders at addressing this sort of issue. He has been in boardrooms in these countries and has come to an understanding of how they operate. These countries remain imperialistic. They remain expansionist. Given the opportunity, they will invade other countries, take their land, take their resources, subjugate them, and so forth. This is simply the way that it works. And again, there's nothing wrong necessarily with the culture. It's just that if you are in the United States, you've got to counterbalance at some point because we happen to have allies in East Asia. They do exist, believe it or not. We have South Korea and Japan and the Philippines and all these other wonderful friends. And, again, there's another country that's breathing down their throats. That's a bit of a problem diplomatically. The problem is figuring out a way to constrain China in its imperialistic endeavors. Currently, for example, they're colonizing parts of Africa. The funny part is that, if you look at the ECOWAS and other, allies within the region, it's a very, very complex geopolitical situation that most people know absolutely nothing about. China has been invading, effectively, parts of East Africa. They will build infrastructure. The infrastructure is only really used by people from China. It's not used by the native African population. There are several countries, I believe Mozambique and I can't remember the other one. They actually have parties there, political parties, that only exist to oppose Chinese authority. They literally have spawned political parties whose only platform is kick out the Chinese. There's probably a reason for this. But people in the West often don't even understand that this is happening. I know Mozambique is one. I believe Namibia is another one. And if I remember correctly, it might be Somalia. I can't remember exactly. There are three countries there that have political parties that are singularly dedicated to that one singular goal. It's the only thing that they're pushing as a platform. Hey, we don't want China to build shit here anymore because they're just exploiting us. Very interesting. You also have countries in the world that have singular parties that are simply anti-US influence. By the way, this is not a surprise because the US has made many mistakes diplomatically. Hopefully, we return to more sane leadership. In the case of China, though, it remains an imperial country because to be a leader in China, you're going to have to be imperialistic. You're going to have to be expansionistic. If you look weak, you're not going to win election. The Politburo, so to speak, is never going to accept you. They're never going to have a Gorbachev. It's never going to happen. That's about all. Peace out.